Let us rejoice and be glad in it. In our Moments of Impact devotional segment, I'll be sharing a devotional entitled, If God Be For You, Who Can Be Against You? In life, you will always have enemies who will seek to inhibit your progress and forward movement. You will always have those who will seek to come up against you to stop or block what God is doing in your life. However, no matter the battle you might be facing, God sent me to tell you today that he will fight for you and he will bring you out victorious. I recall a story in 2 Kings chapter 6 where the prophet Elijah was under attack by the Syrian army because of the intel he provided the king of Israel about them. The scriptures reveal that Elisha the prophet advised the king of Israel of the very words the king of Syria spoke in his bedroom regarding the strategy to defeat the Israelites. This, of course, angered the king of Syria, and as a result, he rallied his troops and sent horses, chariots, and a great host to fight against Israel. And by night, they compassed the city about. And when the servant of Elisha was risen early and was going forth, he saw a host compass the city both with horses and chariots. He panicked and said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And Elisha answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around about Elisha. And when they were come down, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, Lord, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. In this story, Elisha teaches us three powerful lessons about God. Firstly, God's power is greater than any other power in the earth. Secondly, when God is on your side, there is no need to fear what man can do to you. And thirdly, God will never allow your enemies to be victorious over you. In conclusion, I want to reiterate to every believer under the sound of my voice who is facing a battle, I want you to know today that there is more with you than there is against you. I leave you with this final thought. Though the weapon may be formed, it will not prosper. Always remember, if God be for you, who can be against you? Selah. Think and act on these things. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we exalt you and we magnify your name. We praise and we lift your name on high. For you are worthy of all honor, majesty, dominion, and power. Like the psalmist David, unto thee, O Lord, we lift up our souls. We trust in thee. Let us not be ashamed, and let not our enemies triumph over us. Let none of us that wait on you be ashamed. Let them be ashamed which transgress without cause. Show us your ways, O Lord, and teach us thy path. We thank you, Lord, for never leaving us, neither forsaking us. Now, Heavenly Father, we pray for our leaders in this honorable house today. We ask, Almighty God, that you would grant them strength and wisdom to fulfill the duties assigned to them. We pray that each of them will serve this nation with truth, with integrity, and with transparency. Oh Lord, today we pray that every member of this house will operate with respect, decency, order, and decorum towards each other. Oh Lord, we pray against chaos and discomposure. Let calm heads prevail, and may your peace envelop this room. For it's in Jesus' name we pray, amen. Let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, honorable members. When this House suspended its sitting last week, we had just completed the second reading and committal of the Governor General Voluntary Society Bill. I presume we are ready to continue. For the second reading of bills, Committee of the Whole. Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gate.
And the privilege to stand in this honorable place to represent the great people of Golden Gates. I want to acknowledge my husband in the gallery, who's my greatest supporter. He can't vote for me, but he's definitely my greatest supporter. It is a privilege, Deputy, to serve and lead the 23,000 plus public servants across the nation at the pleasure of our Prime Minister. And before I get into the resolution, I would like to take an opportunity to offer some condolences to some families within the Golden Gates constituency. In the past week and a half, we've had a number of deaths in the Golden Gates constituency. So I'd like to offer condolences to the families of Mr. Thomas Pratt, Mr. Emperor McKenzie, Mr. Cleveland Rigby, Mr. William Nairn, Ms. Jennifer Jones, Ms. Tiffany Moncur, to Diana Taylor Williams on her daughter's recent passing, on the recent passing of James Christopher Chrissy Johnson, a great supporter as well. I want to thank my colleagues and the extended community on behalf of my family, as we recently lost my aunt, who was like a mother to me, Ms. Joan Evans Thompson. This morning, again, I extend condolences to my friend Sandy Sands, to Basil, to Dwayne, to Robert Delano and Georgette on the passing of their dear mother and grandmother. But I am most saddened this morning at the passing of a very good friend and supporter of mine, the retired Commissioner Paul Farquharson. And it is with great sadness and a heavy heart that I extend condolences to his wife, Sharon, who just recently gave me a copy of her book. And I promised to stop by so that we could discuss the contents. To Audril, Paul Jr., all of the children, the entire family. Mr. Farquharson was a great supporter of mine in the Golden Gates constituency. We just spoke a few days ago, and we were due to visit soon. And the Lord's will today is done, and clearly that was not to happen. Mr. Farquharson is a great supporter. I met him on the campaign trail officially as a member of the Golden Gates community. Of course, I'd known him before then. And he pledged his support to me. He showed up and he gave me that support, and he also pledged that he would get as much support in Golden Gates because he wanted to see me as his MP. When I became the Member of Parliament, his support continued in a tangible way. He supported and led our Golden Gates expungement program. And he also was a consistent monthly contributor to a number of our programs in Golden Gates, in particular our feeding program. You could mark your calendar by him showing up every month with his contribution. And just a few days ago when we spoke, he, as he always does, continued to tell me how proud he was of me, how happy he was that I was his MP. And we would speak about family, community events, and our relationship, as I called him one of my greatest supporters. So this morning, I'm heartbroken. But of course, he was present at a funeral that another constituent, Mr. Thomas Pratt's funeral, about a week and a half ago. and Reverend Father Sebastian Campbell at that funeral, where Mr. Pratt also suddenly passed and was being buried. Canon Campbell at St. Gregory's Church, which is Mr. Farquharson's parish, with Mr. Farquharson present, said that you're here today, gone today. And Canon Campbell and I spoke this morning just reflecting on that eulogy that he gave with Mr. Farquharson present, and how Mr. Farquharson said that he was going to get past this little bump in the road he was having health-wise, but it was not to be so. So I say, may his soul rest in God's perfect peace. I am sure that the angels were there to greet him at the gates of heaven this morning. May his family be comforted, and our community of Golden Gates during this difficult time. I would also like, Mr. Deputy, to extend some birthday greetings to some constituents. Our greatest stalwart and greatest PLP, because you can't tell her anybody is a bigger PLP than her, Miss Laura Williams, celebrated her 80th birthday last week. I was able to greet her, and we had good conversation. To my friend Michelle Malcolm, who celebrated her 60th, Mildred Murphy, Shelley Sweeting, our own Minister Jobeth Colby Davis, and my mother, who celebrated on the 14th, her 75th birthday. I wish them all, again, birthday greetings. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to some constituents in the Golden Gates community this morning, Mr. Larry King, Audrey Movie Seymour, our stalwarts, our captains, our Golden Gates constituency branch, and of course, all of the constituents. I would like to extend congratulations to two of my favorite young female athletes in our country who recently participated in NACAC in Costa Rica, and I think they're on their way back home to the Bahamas. In our under-17 javelin female, we have silver medalist Diora Scott and bronze medalist Tasia Stubbs. I would just like to celebrate them and honor them this morning. Mr. Deputy, I stand today to open the debate on a resolution for the Bahamas to join the Interparliamentary Union as a key step in joining countries around the globe in advancing and promoting peace, democracy, human rights, sustainable development, and the development of effective, representative, and accountable parliaments. We are at a pivotal moment in our history, just 2 weeks removed from our 50th independence. I would like to note just how amazing the entire month of July has been as the country was enveloped in a wave of national pride. I don't think I've ever seen as many independence outfits and flags and memorabilia. And the lineup of independence events were all well-planned, well-executed, and well-attended. I must say that our Independence Secretariat team did our Jubilee year justice. The Bahamas only turns 50 once, and we certainly brought in this 50th year with grandeur and style. What I really appreciated, Mr. Deputy, was how balanced the calendar of events was. We had moments of appreciation and reflection, moments to discuss our present and our future, and of course, many moments to celebrate being born in the best country in the world. Yes. I know I wouldn't want to be born anywhere else, because you could feel the pride brimming at full capacity from all the people like me who, like we say, born, bred, and gadad. Proud, proud Bahamians. I must applaud the Secretariat, including our permanent secretary, Mr. Jack Thompson, for doing a magnificent job in delivering event after event. Special recognition is in order for a woman of distinction, my friend, my colleague, the member for Seabreeze, Her Excellency Leslie Miller-Bryce, for her leadership of the Secretariat. She proved to everyone that the Prime Minister could not have made a better choice to lead this important historical role. And today, I think we are all still feeling the energy of the patriotism that was exuded through these events. Mr. Deputy, I would also like to recognize the member for Garden Hills, our Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, the Honorable Mario Boleg, for successfully bringing back the Bahamas Games in grand fashion. What a fitting follow-up to the independence celebrations as Bahamians from every corner of the archipelago united for friendly competition. What is so great about the Bahamas Games is that it gives every island an opportunity to shine. I know there was a little debate in the public about who won and how the medals were scored, and I know our minister addressed that. Because, you know, we are very passionate and competitive people, and one thing we can do is debate who won. Whether it's Junkanoo or the Bahamas Games, you're sure to have a very healthy debate. But the real answer to the debate is we all won, Mr. Deputy. The Bahamian people won, because for the first time in years, the Bahamas Games were back, and we fully embraced the opportunity. I must applaud the member for Garden Hills and the Prime Minister for not only bringing the Bahamas Games back, but also investing in the development of youth through sports and revitalizing the Sports in Paradise concept. We can now see the fruits of all that labor, an energized local sports scene, and a growing sports tourism industry. Mr. Deputy, the resolution before us will open the door to the Bahamas officially joining the Interparliamentary Union. The IPU has 179 member parliaments and is one of the oldest multilateral organizations in the world. Currently, the Bahamas is one of a very small number of parliaments who have not joined the IPU. As a nation that takes democracy very seriously, it is about time that we take this critical step to join the rest of the world in developing standards for parliamentary excellence. We are in full support of the objectives of the IPU as we find them to be consistent with our own standards. The 5 strategic objectives are noted as follows. The first objective is to build effective parliaments through empowering parliaments and parliamentarians to operate freely. If at any point any member of parliament in any member country's rights or safety are in jeopardy, the IPU will support and protect them. The IPU also supports capacity building through exchanges, seminars, and the offering of technical assistance to global parliaments. The second objective is to promote inclusive and representative parliaments, which includes a major focus on youth involvement as well as gender equality. These are both underrepresented groups in politics, and as we see in the Bahamas, young people and women make up huge voting blocs. Everyone deserves to have a representative parliament where there are people like them in key decision-making roles. Joining the IPU demonstrates our commitment to ensuring that we are moving in the direction of greater representation for women and youth in parliament. The third objective is to support resilient and innovative parliaments through the adoption of new technologies. The fourth objective is to catalyze collective parliamentary action, which includes the organization of regional and global events to focus on effective policy development. Thousands of parliamentarians come together to join in IPU assemblies, which are held twice per year in cities around the world, as well as many other smaller events. Every 5 years, the World Parliament Presidents' Conference is held to mobilize and organize global parliaments to act on the most pressing issues, such as major treaties and priorities like the Paris Accords on climate change, UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the elimination of discrimination against women. The fifth objective is to strengthen accountability within the IPU, as well as with global parliaments. Mr. Deputy, joining the IPU will enable all Bahamian parliamentarians and the Parliament itself to connect with and learn from parliaments and parliamentarians from 179 jurisdictions. The Bahamas will become part of an expansive network of parliaments who work together to strengthen the institution of their individual parliaments through access to information and expertise, as well as a network of parliamentarians through which a mutual exchange of knowledge can flow. IPU meetings will also provide a forum for our nation to advance its agenda on the world stage, allowing us to lobby and partner with parliamentary representatives from other jurisdictions to advance causes that are important to us, such as climate change and climate resilience funding. I was fortunate to lead the Bahamian delegation attending the 146th IPU Assembly held in Manama, Bahrain this year from the 11th of March to the 15th, with a general theme of promoting peaceful coexistence and inclusive societies. The delegation included Senate President J. Lachelle Adderley, Vice President of the Senate and Bahamas Trade Commission Deputy Chair Barry Griffin, and Senator Dr. Eurecia Hepburn Forbes. The sessions focused on a diverse range of topics, including cyberbullying against parliamentarians and women's equality in Parliament. The women leaders who participate in parliaments around the world are truly resilient and determined. We don't always talk about the nasty attacks that are aimed our way. To be a politician in the Bahamas generally means that you will constantly be exposed to baseless rumors about yourself and, in instances, your loved ones. Your skin must be very, very thick and your shoulders extremely broad to survive the constant barrage of attacks. For women parliamentarians, these attacks can often be more frequent and focus on even more irrelevant and disgusting topics. Through working with IPU, we can take steps towards addressing this issue and many others. There are young women out there who are counting on us to create a better Bahamas for them as they aspire to serve the Bahamian people as the next wave of political leaders. We will now be a part of a global community that is also working toward that goal. While in Bahrain, we followed up on a conversation we had at the 2022 Assembly in Halifax, Canada, with the IPU's Secretary General, Martin Shongang, who was very receptive to the Bahamas becoming a member of IPU. We had previously discussed the ways that membership can promote peace, strengthen democracy, and facilitate sustainable development. The resolution before us today to join the IPU is a product of that discussion. Mr. Deputy, as I said earlier, the Bahamas will be one of the last eligible countries in the world to join the IPU. I believe the number of remaining countries is possibly about 7. The reality of being a small, relatively young country, while 50 years may seem like a long time in a human lifespan, we're talking about countries. A 50-year-old country is still very young. So while we have come a long way, we still have a long way to go. And there are steps that other countries have taken, best practices, that we are now prepared to embrace at this stage of our development and be exposed through IPU affiliation. Maturing as a nation requires us to form alliances and work along with other nations for the common good. In this increasingly globalized world, isolationism is the pathway to stagnancy and failure. We must view membership in an organization like IPU as opportunities not just to contribute to global conversations, but as ways to ensure that the Bahamian agenda is front and center on the world stage. I believe that now, more than ever, given the high stakes of climate change, we must project our voices like never before. We are fortunate to have a Prime Minister who understands this fact and has positioned us as a leading voice on climate change, blue carbon credits, and regional issues like financial de-risking by correspondent banks, food and energy security, and the regional migrant crisis. We may be a small country, but our voice on these issues is now being heard. I am happy to play my part in these discussions through my participation in IPU, CPA, and UN events. Consistent participation, Mr. Deputy, is critical to having our voices heard. Having a consistent group of delegates assists greatly with the forging of relationships and opportunities to collaborate with others. At these conferences, I've personally observed that many of the delegates already know each other. The fact is, Mr. Deputy, many key decisions and opportunities in the world are secured through relationships. The Bahamas must be consistent in its approach to assigning delegations and participating in these events to properly leverage the opportunities that avail themselves to us. This is true whether we're talking about IPU, CPA, or the UN, or any other regional or global assemblies and organizations. I look forward to the opportunities that will emerge as a result of this decision to join the Interparliamentary Union. Mr. Deputy, I now return briefly to my beloved Golden Gates. One of the most inspirational moments throughout the independence celebrations was the participation of so many young people. They proved that they are just as proud to be Bahamian as anyone else. And you know that I'm all about the youth, because I believe that as long as we do what we're supposed to do to empower them, we will be leaving our country in capable hands. Mr. Deputy, I pray for the youth of our nation, that they may be blessed as described in Psalms 144. Let our sons in their youth be like plants full grown, and our daughters like corner pillars fashioned for a palace. This scripture speaks to strength and prosperity, attributes our young people must embody as they build on the foundation we are leaving them. An investment in our youth is the ultimate investment in a better future. Yes. That is why, in Golden Gates, we continue to invest in our young people and provide them with positive avenues for empowerment and recreation. At the beginning of this month, our daily Summer Scoops ice cream giveaway has returned for the second year in a row for all of my Golden Gates babies. Beginning last week, from the 17th to the 21st of July, the annual Golden Gates Cultural Enrichment and Empowerment Summer Camp was hosted for children aged 6 to 11 years, and this week we host ages 12 to 17 from today until the 28th of July. At this camp, our young people get to hone their orange economy skills as they learn soap making, junkanoo crafts, drumming, straw work, sewing, and coconut jewelry making. They also participate in Zumba fitness classes and many other wholesome, fun activities. Our annual Report Card Rewards Day will be held this coming Saturday, the 29th of July. Last year, I gave away 100 bicycles to students that attained a 2.5 GPA and higher. We expect to replicate that success this year. Also, this coming Saturday, we launch our third free park Wi-Fi at Pebbles Park, thanks to my colleague, the Honorable Member for Bain and Grantstown, who is working hard to ensure that this administration's promise of free Wi-Fi in all parks in our communities is delivered successfully. Mr. Deputy, we continue to recruit for our Golden Gates basketball teams and will be participating in the annual Scooter Reed Peace on the Streets tournament again this year, which is held this week. And I'm grateful to our committed and championship GG coaches, Mr. Terrence Red Eye McSweeney, Coach Vashti Ramming, and Coach Ernest Saunders. In August, we will host our annual Back to School Summer Slip and Slide Water Park event to allow our Golden Gates babies to have a day of water, fun, and games prior to the start of the new school year. I encourage constituents to check all of my social media platforms at Pia Glover Roll on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay abreast of all of the events in Golden Gates and our constituency broadcast for important information on employment and scholarship opportunities. So, Deputy, we are in the final stages of deliberating the winners of our male empowerment scholarships, and the recipients will be named in the coming weeks. I am grateful to the Bridget Francis Ingram International College Planning Firm, Druba Solutions, and Houston Tillotson University for partnering with me and providing one full ride, $100,000 four-year scholarship and 3 partial scholarships for deserving and qualified young men in Golden Gates. The gift of education is invaluable, and I'm privileged to be able to provide access to tertiary level education for the young men of my constituency. Mr. Deputy, I also ensure that our senior citizens are not overlooked in Golden Gates. We continue to support the local creative community, specifically the Shakespeare in Paradise series being held at the Dundas Center for the Performing Arts. I engage the Golden Gate seniors on a monthly matinee date. It remains a great time of laughter, fun, an opportunity to get them out of their houses on an exciting bus ride that always becomes a sing-along to enjoy brilliant Bahamian entertainment. Our group is growing, and there's space on the bus for everyone over the age of 60 in Golden Gates that wishes to join us. As I reflect on our Golden Gate seniors, I must acknowledge and continue to extend prayers for one of my greatest supporters, Mrs. Iris Hudson, who remains hospitalized. But I also rejoice with Reverend Cleveland Nemore and young Mr. Winston J. Coakley, a 15-year-old, who have both been recently given good, clean bills of health and are able to ring bells as survivors of the beast of cancer. To God be the glory for their healing and continued good health. Mr. Deputy, it's a pleasure and honor to serve the people of the Gates, Golden Gates, as their representative in this honorable House. I thank the Prime Minister for his continued faith in me to carry on the people's business in whatever capacity I'm needed. As Minister of State for the Public Service, I am grateful for the support of the member for Fox Hill, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service, who has empowered the team at Public Service to do the work that we do. And the results speak for themselves. I would like to thank the hardworking officers and special task force of the Ministry of Public Service led by Ms. Betty Sutherland Brown, the hardworking teams at Ministry of Public Service led by our capable and competent Permanent Secretary, Ms. Gina Thompson, and the hard-working Public Service Commission and staff. They continue to accomplish the task at hand while still addressing the huge promotions backlog and many outstanding HR matters that we met when we took office. A little over a week ago, thanks to our Labor Relations Unit, led by Mr. Bernard Evans, we signed our 19th and 20th labor industrial agreements since assuming office. One with BPSU for Antiquities, Monuments, and Museums Corporation, as well as an agreement with BTVI workers through UTAB. The public service-wide promotional exercise is still moving forward, and the Assistant Secretary assessment exercise for promotion is nearing its final stage. So we expect to see a lot of upward movement in the coming months. Mr. Deputy, we are not even at our 2-year mark as an administration, but I'm encouraged by the progress we have made in so many vital areas of national development. I believe that our membership in the Interparliamentary Union will prove very beneficial in supporting the mission to achieve our national objectives. Mr. Deputy, Golden Gates stands in full support of this resolution.
Before we move on, I'd just like to offer my condolences to Deacon Ricardo and Denise Bell on the passing of their son, Ronaldo Bell, Minister Frederick Wallace and family on the passing of his father, Miss Willamay Albury and family on the passing of their daughter, Siobhan Albury, and the family members of Latoya Thompson. I would also like to also my condolences to the family of the late Patricia Lewis from Harbor Island. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Nassau Village.
Good morning, Mr. Deputy. Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Deputy, at the outset, I wish to thank the Almighty God for allowing me and giving me strength to be here today. And duly, I would just like to thank the great constituents of the Nassau Village constituency for continuing to believe in me and support me as I go, whose voices I am loaned to give this contribution in these hallowed halls today. I would just like to remind those great constituents of Nassau Village that their unwavering support and their dedication does not go unnoticed, and I remain committed and will continue to commit myself to ensuring that their interests are represented not only domestically, but internationally. Mr. Deputy, before I wade into my contribution, I wish to also extend some condolences to constituents and friends. To Miss Anita Strawn, who passed, I would just like to extend condolences to the Strawn family. On the passing, thank you, on the passing of Miss Clarissa Toop, my classmate, I wish to extend condolences to her family. To Mr. Shahuba Pratt and his family, I wish to extend condolences. And also, I wish to echo the sentiments of the good member for Golden Gate and extending condolences to the Sands family, my fraternity brothers, Delano, Basil, and also Sandy Sands, on the passing of their mother and grandmother. Mr. Deputy, as I said before wading into my contribution, I would also like to give thanks to the staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a hive of bright minds and hard workers, for their tireless efforts, which assist this government in scoring significant diplomatic victories in the most recent weeks. Too long has those hard-working persons gone unnoticed, Mr. Deputy, and I would just like to continuously thank them for going above and beyond. Mr. Deputy, touching on the related point, I note that the opposition continuously harps on the fact of traveling, making references to it, and trying to make this issue ambiguous and clouded in some regard. But when one looks at the sheer definition of traveling, and it explains that it is when one goes abroad and comes back with nothing but the experience of having been abroad. But on the other hand, Mr. Deputy, diplomacy is much, much different. These diplomatic missions and these envoys that we send, they go abroad with flag in hand. They go abroad with the country in their heart. And they return home with results, Mr. Deputy. You see, folks in my constituency would put it simply as 242 to the world. So when it comes to this, it can be quite confusing when trying to politically volley from left to right. But on the matter of relevance, Mr. Deputy, I speak about diplomacy because multilateralism is the cohesive unit that it connects not only diplomacy with the IPU and multilateral bodies such as the IPU. Mr. Deputy, my colleagues and I would happily note that it's still a new day. Feels new, looks new, and it echoes from shore to shore. But as we go on, Mr. Deputy, within the past short weeks, our government has championed the country's climate position on carbon credit schemes in Paris, honored our heritage with our family in Bermuda, and laid down the country's red lines in Washington, and also submitted petitions in Miami, all in an effort to safeguard this country's integrity and maintain our position. Mr. Deputy, just a short few weeks ago, the Bahamas was applauded as we handed over leadership of the region in Port of Spain. The CARICOM nations applauded the Bahamas and echoed unanimously, saying, "Well done," on a job well done, to our Prime Minister. Mr. Deputy, I would like to also ask and add another point to our government scorecard. In Brussels last week, our Prime Minister defended closer relations with the EU, but on the Bahamas' own terms, taking the Europeans on head first over blacklisting our country, and which ultimately makes it more difficult for small businesses and students to get access to financing. Mr. Deputy, it all goes to show that the government is winning at diplomacy and is doing the hard work that it takes to put our country first. On that note, Mr. Deputy, and on the resolution laid before us today in this honorable House, I highlight one of this government's core foreign policy rules, and that is the Bahamas only signs on to things that benefit Bahamians or highlight our history. The Interparliamentary Union, the IPU, is such an organization. Mr. Deputy, the IPU offers a variety and a vast range of benefits for the Bahamas and its legislators, including access to a global network of some 179 member parliaments, knowledge sharing on democratic governance and representation. It also provides for opportunities to promote the country's agenda on the international stage. advocacy for the safety and protection of parliamentarians, and engagement in collective parliamentary action on pressing global issues. Mr. Deputy, but before going any further, I would like to thank earnestly the Member of Parliament for Golden Gates, the Honorable Minister of State for Public Service, Pia Glover, on her leadership. You see, Mr. Deputy, the member would have mentioned the IPU meeting in Bahrain, but it was her efforts at the 65th CPA, Conference of Parliamentary Association, held in Halifax, Canada, that served as a preamble to the Bahamas even considering membership of this great institution. And I commend you on your foresight. Mr. Deputy, the IPU was founded in 1889, though persons will appreciate that its role has evolved from simply arbitrating international conflicts to promoting democracy and interparliamentary dialogue. The IPU assemblies are held twice a year, as my colleague would have said, in various cities, providing a platform for parliamentary delegations to exchange views and debate on important themes. Mr. Deputy, the IPU's strategic objective include building effective and empowered parliaments, promoting inclusive and representative parliaments, supporting resilient and innovative parliaments, catalyzing a collective of parliamentary actions, and strengthening accountability. Mr. Deputy, joining the IPU will enable our Bahamian parliamentarians to connect and learn from colleagues in member jurisdiction, and allows the Bahamas access to information and experts and parliamentarians globally, ultimately advancing democratic governance, youth engagement, gender equality, and representation. Mr. Deputy, membership provides a valuable forum for the Bahamas to advocate for its international priorities, like urban development, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and economic empowerment. Mr. Deputy, as members will know, despite the Bahamas having a vibrant national parliament, it does not have the IPU membership, and until now has never even sought to do so. However, this resolution is one step to rectifying that, one step in the correct and right direction. Membership in the IPU is significant to the Bahamas, as it is our 50th year of the country's independence, and it gives the nation a place to display its leadership in one of the rare fields where it has many centuries of experience. And I reiterate, the Bahamas has many centuries of experience. The institution, Mr. Deputy, which you chair, was established long before our country's independence, founded in 1729, some 294 years ago. The House of Assembly of the Bahamas is the region's third oldest legislative institution, Mr. Deputy. I'll admit, we are beat out by two other Bs, being Bermuda in 1620 and also Barbados in 1639. But our country is in a prime historical position. This House is older than the American Congress and is a solid 60 years older and senior to the U.S. House of Representatives. Mr. Deputy, many Bahamians do not recognize the significance of these facts. The fact that we are blessed with a long-lived democracy and strong institutions, or of the fact that when the most powerful and wealthiest nations on earth speak about the topic of diplomacy, the Bahamas can stand up and proudly say age before beauty, considering that we are their senior. We can also add that we can provide expert opinions on diplomacy itself. But of course, Mr. Deputy, I jest. But these are simple and mere facts that every Bahamian should know and be proud of. And it is a pride in this history that the Bahamas government now feels that we can share. We can share more. We have a contribution to add. And that is why I believe that this accession of this resolution is paramount. Membership in the IPU is our country's chance to take its place as a world expert in parliamentary procedure and advancing democracy itself. Mr. Deputy, when we look at parliaments elsewhere, let us be grateful to God for what we have here. What passes as a heated debate in these honorable house and in these honorable chambers would be calm and tamed in those countries where parliamentary sessions often see brawls, shouting, and even shooting. Even great nations are not immune to the ravages of those who have simply lost respect for the institutions. This chamber was appalled to see the maniacal storming of the American Capitol in 2021, and when copycats did the same in Brazil a year later. The Bahamas does not know this kind of behavior and should be a guiding light, a beacon on the hill for those countries which are forced to face it. This is why we should be a part of institutions like the IPU, because we have the credentials, we have the moral foundation to comment on parliamentary matters and democratic proceedings. We have the smooth, uncontested elections for centuries and transferred power from one administration to the next without incident. Maybe we take these facts for granted, but not every country can boast of these simple facts. And we have had no coups, Madam Speaker. Well, just one, but again, the member for Killarney isn't here, so I would not refer to those coups. But of course, his colleagues may remember it. But, Mr. Deputy, no record have only sunny spots, I guess. Mr. Deputy, it is time to seize the opportunity to share our knowledge, learn from other nations. So I reiterate, and I'll go back. The honorable member for Killarney may remember having been the victim of a coup during his previous stint as leader of the opposition. Of course, other of his colleagues may remember it, but as we speak about consistency and we speak about stability, it is all in good fun. It's all in good fun. Mr. Deputy, it is time to seize the opportunity to share our knowledge, learn from other nations, and collaborate on key issues like climate change, like building our agricultural sector, like promoting urban development, improving education. The Bahamas, as small as they may say we are, can shape the future of these matters, both at home and abroad. So, Mr. Deputy, on behalf of the great constituents of the Nassau Village constituency, I wish to support this bill and continue to say 242 to the world. I rest, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas the Interparliamentary Unit, the IPU, is a body that seeks to promote peace and security, democracy and human rights, the rule of law and sustainable development. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House approves Parliament being a member of the Interparliamentary Unit, approves the constitution of the committee comprising of 5 persons to have responsibility for organization of the relations and activities of Parliament with Inter-Parliamentary Unit, approves the making of guidelines by Parliament on how it will function as a member of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I give thanks to God for this opportunity to once again be in the Parliament of the Bahamas to echo the views of the people of Marco City, and by extension, other Bahamians who've elected us to be facilitators of their dreams and aspirations and to be responsive to the concerns that they have about everyday life and matters that may arise. Each time we come, Mr. Deputy, to this Parliament, each of us remember those that have passed And we grieve with the families that continue to hurt. And all over the Bahamas, families are grieving. I wish, Mr. Deputy, to extend condolences to the family of Shada Parker, who passed and was laid to rest on Saturday, and similarly, the family of Clyde Hepburn, the entire community of Marco City, and those especially on Albacore Drive, and the tragic passing of Wayne Stirrup, and our heart goes out especially to his daughters. We also wish, Mr. Deputy, to extend condolences to the family of our former Commissioner of Police, Paul Farquharson, who, like so many that serve in our armed forces, served with distinction. And we want the family to know that you are in our thoughts and prayers. I had an opportunity to speak with the chairman of the Free National Movement last night, who in the midst of his duties and other responsibilities had to break the news of the passing of his mother and to the entire family. Sandy, of course, all the sisters, and Basil, who attended same university that I did, to all of the Sands family, immediate and extended, we have you in our prayer. We learned with sadness of the passing of Reverend Lloyd Smith, an old school minister of the gospel in the Bahamas, a no-nonsense preacher who didn't hesitate to let all and sundry know that he is leading the largest group of worshipers and parishioners in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And when they speak, if you don't hear, you'll feel. And so we extend condolences to the entire Smith family. And of course, we remember Pastor Larry Wilscombe from St. Peter's Baptist Church in West End. And we thank God for his witness and service and for the sacrifice of his family. We remember Anita Strawn, the mother of Carolyn Strawn, a valuable member of our team, and to let Carolyn know that we are grieving with you. And my friend for probably 30 years, Marlene Minus, we grieve with her entire family, and the Fort Hill family, the Centerville family, on the passing of Ruth Minus. And we thank God for her mother and the many children she has raised over these many years. Mr. Deputy, we join with the member for Golden Gates as she has once again come to the Parliament to help to advance the work that we do here. And we have not been shy about complimenting her on the work that she has done, because we know that she's certainly mature enough whenever we critique, but she has made invaluable contributions to this important work. And so today, we support our country's decision to join the Interparliamentary Union, a body that seeks to promote peace and security and democracy and human rights, the rule of law, and sustainable development. Mr. Deputy, the way in which our global community has evolved, associations or unions such as this, such as the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and others, are extremely important. When the United Nations was formed, there was a perception, Mr. Deputy, that governments of the world represented their citizens, and there was a need for these governments to work in tandem with each other to avoid the reoccurrence of World Wars I and II. And that through diplomacy, countries would be able to talk with each other, work with each other for the betterment of the globe in general, but for their individual countries. That perception quickly changed as citizens of the world and even progressive governments of the world appreciated that governments do not always act in the interests of their populations. Sometimes deliberately and sometimes due to a scarcity of resources. And non-governmental organizations became even more important in the global conversation about how do we improve the condition of our peoples, even in the areas identified: peace and security, democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and sustainable development. So increasingly, the United Nations gave way and facilitated conferences that allowed not only government actors, but non-government actors to hold global conferences to address issues that traditional governments have not been able to resolve. And this is now even more important in an age where people are increasingly cynical about the role that governments play, regardless of which administration in their country is in place. And so, Mr. Deputy, by joining the Interparliamentary Union, one of the benefits is that we would be able to listen to, observe, and take on board best practices that exist in other jurisdictions, and not always best practices that have been created by governments themselves, but by innovative leaders, parliamentarians, who may even be in opposition. And so this is an important, we believe, step forward. The more we are able to interact with colleagues from around the world, to share best practices, we are in a better position to be more effective at home in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This week, we intend, Mr. Deputy, to proceed with the debate on the Parliamentary Service Bill, which again, our considerations and thoughts on this bill that we will look at, I believe, on Wednesday, is largely informed by the work being done in other jurisdictions as well. And it is a welcome addition to our agenda. Mr. Deputy, we should not forget, our purpose for being here every day is to deal with the matters that affect our people, the people who sent us here, who hoisted us on their shoulders and sent us to this place because they expect us to be relevant on the issues that affect them. And so it is wonderful, as we look at the resolution today, to see that one of the issues the IPU is focused on is the issue of climate change, which is very relevant. Countries around the world, in Europe, certainly in North America, literally around the world, are battling record high temperatures that's claiming lives in countries around the world. In the Bahamas, many Bahamians are struggling with unbearable heat that they are unable to find refuge from in homes that sometimes, if you are along a corridor, let's say like Village Road, and the dust keeps your windows closed and you lack AC, it could be a problem. But there are many of our communities where dust is a problem. I have several of those roads in Marco City, and if you lack AC, you have an issue with heat and the potential for heat stroke. So as we look at the IPU objective of addressing the issue of climate change, one cannot help but think about how important utility companies are, Mr. Deputy. And in the Bahamas, we have one that is in crisis. We have one that is under-resourced. We have one that's presided over by a minister that's lost the moral authority to continue to preside over its affairs. We have one that is saddling Bahamian residents and businesses with exceptionally high costs of electricity. So in the course of our participation in the IPU, it is important for us to talk with other jurisdictions to see how they are dealing with retiring legacy debt that BPL has, of raising some $535 million or thereabouts to ensure that not only that we would retire the legacy debt, but we would fix the infrastructure, that we would ensure the generation, transmission, distribution are resolved to the betterment of consumers, residential as well as commercial, that we would refine the workforce and work with those people who every day put in the hard work to make the utility company better. But alas, we are trapped with a government that promised that within the first 100 days, it would pay attention and review all systems at the utility company and come up with a strategic plan on how to lower electricity. We have gone in the opposite direction, and businesses are being weighed down. So as we join the IPU, Madam Minister, we join with you in having conversations with our colleagues around the world to find out how they are coping with this albatross that is around the necks of Bahamian businesses and residents, and these costs that are weighing us down. As we join the IPU, we know that one part of their agenda has been to ensure that they deepen democracy. And in order for us to deepen democracy, there is a need for transparency. All administrations in the Bahamas are well served when we are open about the things that we do on behalf of the Bahamian people. It's most unfortunate that for some of the things this administration is seeking to accomplish, and we've come in this House, Mr. Deputy, and we have voted for a number of those initiatives because we thought that they would move us in the right direction. And at the end of those debates, we all knock on the desk and bang on the desk because we found common ground to support useful pieces of legislation. But the moment the opposition takes issue with a failure of this government to do what is in the best interest of our people, we hear the name calling and the threats from across the floor, sometimes from their seat, and then the savaging in the social media because we do not agree with all things that they do. And the reason we are unable to is because some things this administration does is indefensible. And so in the spirit of the IPU and the deepening of democracy, the advancement of human rights and gender equality and youth participation in peace and security, we support the resolution because we know that the time is now for the Bahamas to live up to these ideals. And in some areas we're getting it right, in some areas we're not. Security is one of those areas where we are having a challenge. And it is my hope that this administration and all of us in interacting with our parliamentary colleagues around the world would look at how they address issues of security. We have a security problem as it relates to immigration, Mr. Deputy. We have a problem with the cross-border movement of persons who are seeking a better life but have determined they're not going to do it the right way and come to our country, whether by plane or by boat. And the gatekeepers of our country have an obligation in a humane way, without raising hysteria, to interdict, to interview, to detain, and where necessary, to deport. In other cases, people come to the country because they can add value and they come the right way. And we make sure that they have the requisite documents in order, Mr. Deputy, for them to contribute to our development. The Free National Movement under my leadership, we believe in organized migration because we do in some areas need help at the white and blue collar level. I live in Grand Bahama, an underpopulated island with lots of potential that can benefit from Bahamian talent and talent from elsewhere. But all who wish to cast their lot with us must come the right way, follow the procedures, and at no point be permitted to displace Bahamians at the blue or white collar level. What we do not support, Mr. Deputy, as we look at the peace and security element of the IPU, we do not support the gatekeepers of our country, surrendering the country for either political purposes, financial benefit, or even neglect, negligence in performing their duty, failure to discharge fiduciary responsibility for organizations or departments that they are responsible for. So as we look at this resolution, we have to look at it against the backdrop of illegal workers found at the Hilton, interdicted by immigration officers, placed in buses, in transportation to be taken to the detention center, and to have no less than one of those gatekeepers call and demand their release. And so for 65 persons picked up, immigration officers, Mr. Deputy, were unable to determine 62 of them which country they came from, under what conditions they were here. They had no documents. They presumably lived at the location where they were. And so if they had documents, they would have been able to go and get it. Was someone withholding their documents from them? Were they a part of human trafficking, which is what the immigration officers asked and were seeking to determine? Because maybe no. How long were they in the country? Who facilitated them coming into the country? As we debate this resolution and deal with the issue of peace and security, these are the real kinds of issues that we have to address. Imagine, so egregious was the act of a gatekeeper calling a deputy director and other officials to have persons released. So egregious was that the director thought to write a permanent secretary to say that this is a continuous course of action, interfering in the administration of justice. This is so startling, it's hard for people to believe that as we ascend to an important organization to protect the country, to ensure peace and security, that you would have gatekeepers that are interfering. Let me just, for those that are not familiar, show why such a resolution is important so we can benefit from our brothers and sisters around the world who have managed to address these kinds of issues. In a memo dated the 18th of January 2023, under the caption, and it's sent to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labor and Immigration, under the heading Chinese Nationals British Colonial Hotel, it reads, reference is made to the apprehension exercise that was conducted on the 17th of January 2023 at about 2,000 hours by the enforcement unit, acting on information received that a large group of Chinese nationals were being housed at the closed British Colonial Hotel on Bay Street. The immigration officers found 65 persons. Of the 65 persons, only 3 persons were able to produce documents to prove their identity. Directives were received from Minister Bell at about 2,059 hours to have the immigration officers stand down on the operation, and that any breach will be remedied on the 18th of January, 2023. Minister Bell indicated that this request was made by acting PM Cooper. While I am cognizant of the present economic climate, the memo continues, and the lack of jobs for Bahamians, I find it very disconcerting when directives of this nature are continuously received. This type of action is demoralizing to the immigration officers in particular, who are trying to do their jobs as mandated by law. Further, this is a security breach, as we do not have any idea who the remaining 62 persons are, and nor how they entered our country. In addition, it begs the question of if trafficking in persons may be a factor in this instance. It also appears that the expatriate had more rights in the Bahamas than Bahamians. The memo continues, Mr. Deputy. Moreover, this is also a show of disrespect to the chair of Director of Immigration. To this end, I believe that a better outcome could have been realized if the officers were allowed to take the persons into custody on last evening and process the individuals so that we would have known who was in the group and possibly if anyone was being victimized or perhaps trafficked. Submitted for your information and comments, and this came from the Director of Immigration. So as we pursue additional help and advice from our colleagues around the world on peace and security, we are obliged as a country to carry out our duties, not to be obstructionists of the enforcement of law, which raises a broader question on whether a law was broken in this case, and we believe that it was. Dealing with this issue of peace and security, Mr. Deputy, it is amazing that today, as we meet in this Parliament, that we do not pivot from what is the intended purpose or to augment the intended purpose of passing this resolution by adding to the agenda those matters that are so critical to our development. And every government should guard against the loss of confidence by its people in our institutions. So this isn't just about PLP, it's about the FNM as well. This is about ensuring we protect the confidence that our people have in us. That's why we wanted a select committee to deal with this issue of peace and security the IPU talks about. We wanted a select committee on immigration because we know that there's great cynicism among Bahamians about our willingness to protect our country and to organize ourselves in a transparent and accountable way in dealing with illegal migration, but also organized migration that we also need. I mentioned just recently, Mr. Deputy, that there was a lady whose work permit, for example, had expired in 2019. She was arrested, no application for renewal at that time of arrest. Arrangements was made for deportation along with her child. Instructions were given not to deport. The application for renewal was submitted after the arrest and the detention, and the work permit was approved, and this is in 2022. And it covered the period from 2022 to 2023. And all outstanding fees that were due for the previous period was waived. It's another incident, a female. I have the name, by the way, Mr. Speaker, but out of respect, I won't raise it in the Parliament, but the information is available to the Prime Minister. The minister we are informed is well familiar with the names. The second was, there was this lady who was scheduled for deportation, reportedly approved for permit while detained in the detention center. A third person was intercepted on a boat attempting to be smuggled into the United States, was charged, convicted, placed on the restricted list, and was allegedly approved for work permit. 4, this person is not from the Caribbean. They're from halfway around the world, reportedly approved for work permit while once again detained at the detention center. There's a long list. I'm just giving 5. That's the 4th one. The 5th, and the 5th is the most interesting of them all. And we just, in case there was any confusion about it, all supporting documents have been brought. The 5th was arrested by immigration officers on October 11, 2022 for overstaying. And this is after multiple extensions, by the way. Was deported on October 16, 2022. Application was submitted on October 13 while they were detained in the detention center. No opportunity for them to sign the application, right? While they were in the detention center, and they were allegedly approved for a permit the day of or after they were deported. And this gets even more interesting, because the officer who investigated this most incredible case, I think I should read that section, what that officer said about that particular case. The officer, and let me just interject, Mr. Deputy, we're still on the subject of the IPU and its commitment to peace and security. Mr. Deputy, Monarch House, Mr. Deputy, is one of the offices of the Ministry with responsibility for immigration. That office is most often used to deal with issues of citizenship and naturalization of persons. It has become, according to immigration officers, the hub for work permits and all things that can move expeditiously. By the way, all of these matters I just raised seem to have come from the Monarch files. The officer who looked at this last individual that I mentioned makes this point in their assessment of that person. And this is the category that a lot of these seem to fall into. Subject arrived, this is the subject who was arrested while in detention. They actually made application, but they never participated themselves in the process miraculously, was restricted, and we know that only cabinet can lift restrictions, and therefore we wish to know if cabinet participated in this, or was this done unilaterally? And that's one of numerous cases, by the way. And then this individual gets approved. We have the name. Subject arrived in the Bahamas on the 30th of June, 2019, and was landed for 90 days, 2019. He received extensions until the 20th of January, 2020, and was arrested on the 11th of October, 2022 for overstaying, and was deported on the 16th of October, 2022. Work permit was approved on the 17th of October, 2022 by minister. No decision letter scanned, issued, and collected the 18th of October, 2022. Please note that instructions were given to restrict this individual. They put that in just as a reminder as they gave their report. And so again, if we are serious about peace and security and benefiting from best practices in other jurisdictions, these are the kinds of issues a government must be seen to be serious about. And particularly when you're dealing with one of the most important gatekeepers, who themselves, clearly their fingerprints are all over this matter, but they are not contented to face the music alone. They seek to identify another colleague. I mentioned a group that, you know, in the Bahamas on the street level, the fellas that say, man, whenever they get caught doing something, man, why do 10 when you could share it with a friend? It appears, Mr. Deputy, that the minister has sought to implicate one that is senior to him who has denied that he participated in such a process. Two persons talking on the same subject, having a completely different version of the story, doesn't suggest, but reveals that someone is not telling the truth. But then, of course, there are other options too. So, as we ascend to the IPU, an important step forward, these are the kinds of matters that we must address. We believe in this case that the damage to the reputation and credibility of the minister is so severe, he cannot be allowed to continue in that position. His position is much like Fort Charlotte position, that when found out, one seeks to implicate, in that case, Fort Charlotte implicated the Prime Minister. And so this is a team that, if there's one way they believe in teamwork, is to say, when I'm in trouble, let me call my colleague who do this thing with me. It can't be right, Mr. Deputy. And so as I support this resolution and applaud the minister for bringing it, we condemn this bad behavior by this administration. We ask them to take into consideration the reputational damage, the threat to our security. Imagine if something had gone wrong with any of the 62 persons. Imagine if this was an issue of human trafficking. We still don't know. Imagine if they were persons who had bad intentions during the age of anti-terrorism. We don't know. Imagine Imagine if there was health issues and we needed to screen them and wasn't given a chance to do the job. Imagine. This is not about F&M and PLP. This is about a failure of the system to protect the integrity of rules, regulations, and procedure. There cannot be one rule for the Progressive Liberal Party and a different rule for other people, Mr. Deputy. And so we call for the resignation of the member for Carmichael. And this would be a wonderful thing that on the occasion of this resolution, that he does the honorable thing. And he won't. The Prime Minister should have the courage to fire him. Marco City supports this resolution.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are you going to lay those documents? Member, are you going to lay those documents?
Yes, yes, sir.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents to lie on the table. As many. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Yamakura.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy, I stand here today on behalf of the good people of Yamakura constituency, and I rise to support this bill. Mr. Deputy, as new parliamentarians, we are considered rookies in politics. The Minister of State for Public Service spoke of the constant attacks on the character of parliamentarians, which is very disturbing, especially when they are women who are mothers, in some cases grandmothers and sisters, and they are persons who should not be subject to personal attacks on themselves or their family. I concur with our position that we must have thick skin and broad shoulders. I also agree that it's wrong to be subject to these types of attacks I've mentioned. As a Christian nation where we want to get more women involved in Parliament. Mr. Deputy, we are game changers and have shown our commitment to this Parliament and country by bringing landmark bills and positive changes to our Parliament. Mr. Deputy, the fact that the Bahamas is reputed as being the oldest parliament or parliamentary democracy in the Western Hemisphere, having had Parliament sitting virtually unbroken since 1729. In addition, we are the third oldest democracy in the hemisphere and a perennial voice raised in defense of democracy around the world. Mr. Deputy, I will not be long on this bill because it's very clear and obvious why we all should support this bill. It is therefore evident that the government of the Bahamas is both philosophically and politically aligned with the IPU's focus to encourage and protect global democracy. Our alignment with their strategic objectives are paramount to why we should support this bill. Our government is also aligned with the strategic objectives of the IPU, which center on strengthening and empowering parliamentary democracies to improve the lives of their Bahamian citizens. As a union man, Mr. Deputy, most people know my history of education and unionism, and I believe that the benefits of joining the Interparliamentary Union, or the IPU, they're very clear. As a young Bahamian politician, however, there are some aspects of the IPU's strategic objectives that I believe are crucial to the Bahamas at this moment in our political development. The fact that our politics is getting younger is part of this, or part of the reason why we should support this. The median age of our politicians is lowering significantly, and that is reflective of a larger reality that leadership in our country is increasingly being transferred into the hands of younger Bahamians. Mr. Deputy, our dynamic makeup as an administration speaks volumes to our commitment to young leadership and succession planning. Given this reality, the work of the IPU to support the capacity building of Parliament or of parliaments, and especially to empower parliaments by establishing standards, is critical. In this way, the IPU works to strengthen its members, and the Bahamas would benefit greatly from participating in these activities. In addition, the IPU's advocacy for youth involvement and gender equality aligns with the cultural development of the Bahamas. The cry for equality and representation, particularly in our politics and governance, contributes to crescendo in the modern Bahamas, and our actions in this regard will come to be a defining characteristic of our administration, of this administration. Therefore, joining the IPU for access to data and information on emerging trends, best practices, and solutions, the most recent research and knowledge sharing of the diverse experiences of parliaments is essential. Another important element of the IPU's strategic goal is support for resilient and innovative parliaments. In this regard, Mr. Deputy, the Bahamas can do nothing but benefit from access to the IPU's Innovation Center in Parliament, a tool which could help us to harness new technologies and to leverage its research, data, and knowledge sharing with the aim of strengthening our capacity to absorb, develop, and innovate in the face of external shocks, and at the same time help manage emerging risks such as the effects of climate change. Given our recent experiences with natural disasters, one can imagine the utility of these best practices in our archipelago. Mr. Deputy, I will just focus on a few benefits of joining the IPU at this time. The fact that the IPU also has a focus on arbitration of international conflicts is not lost on this member. Mr. Deputy, having another forum to air disputes at the international level, especially one that is composed of our peers in Parliament and in parliamentary democracy, can only redound to the benefit of our country. Mr. Deputy, having addressed the issue of capacity building, I want to reiterate the value of the IPU membership as a trusted avenue for all Bahamian parliamentarians, and the institution of Parliament itself to connect with and learn from parliaments and parliamentarians from 179 jurisdictions. Mr. Deputy, this will greatly contribute to the modernization and advancement of parliamentary democracy in the Bahamas by enhancing knowledge and understanding of the democratic governance, youth engagement in democracy, gender equality, and equal representation. Mr. Deputy, another significant benefit of IPU membership is the value of IPU meetings and events as a forum for the Bahamas to advance its agenda on the international stage. These meetings and forums provide a unique way for the Bahamas to be able to lobby parliamentary representatives from all around the world. Things that are important to us such as climate change and the need for reform on multilateral organizations to more accurately address the need for small island nations such as the Bahamas, for our needs to be addressed, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, it is only fitting that we all support this resolution. Please allow me, Mr. Deputy, to turn my attention briefly to Yamakura constituency. As the people, the good people of Yamakura, there are some things that have sent me today. There are some things that I must identify and acknowledge. The hardworking team that continue to contribute and to send here to represent on resolutions such as this. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy, I also want to acknowledge some of the things that are being done on the ground in Yamakura as we have cleared this year in our midterm report or mid-year report. I want to acknowledge a few things that we have done. We have cleared 25 overgrown lots, employed or helped to employ over 60 constituents in that short space of time. We have paved over 100 potholes, made donations to the Elizabeth Estates Children's Home, and I'd like to send acknowledgments to the managers there at the Elizabeth Estates Children's Home. We have contributed to breakfast twice a week for kids at Thelma Gibson, on the government's lunch program for the full school semester also, those students who were there. Now we have the breakfast program, and so we're looking for those students to be a part of the government's breakfast program. We have donated food vouchers, $50 vouchers, in some instances, each family, and families who have been identified on this program, repaired street lights, and I think that it's important to acknowledge that coming into office, Yamakura constituency had a huge number of street lights. I think we had about 160 street lights out in Yamakura, and all of those have been repaired with the help of the Minister of Works and his team, and also BPL. And we have engaged also some private persons to assist in lighting areas. We have done park initiatives where 2 of our parks have full lighting and Wi-Fi, and we are looking to do 2 additional parks before this year is done. Mr. Deputy, we continue to visit those who are sick and shut in, donating things like school supplies and fans to school. We've cleaned Yamakura constituency, and we are asking persons to discontinue dumping. As we clean areas, persons seem to think that there is a pickup that regularly comes for bulk items, and this is not the case. Only when we put notices out are persons to put bulk items on the side of the road for cleaning, because this is a vexing issue. Mr. Deputy, many other things that have been done is to address our climate change issues and hurricanes. So we've donated 400 sandbags to homeowners and continue to donate sandbags in cases of flooding. We know we had, before this heat wave, we had weeks of rain. And we have distributed also canvases to homeowners and look forward to home repairs. The good member from Yamakura, small home repairs of roofs and things that of that nature that impact some of our more needy persons in the constituency. Mr. Deputy, I do thank you for allowing me this platform to support this resolution. I ask that God may continue to bless the good people of Yamakura. I ask that God may continue to bless this Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and Yamakura is proud to support this resolution. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Killarney.
Struggling here with this cough. Mr. Deputy, I'll be very brief this morning. First, I'd like to extend condolence to Dr. Sands and the Sands family on the death of his mother. I'd also like to extend condolence on the family of former Commissioner of Police, Farquharson, and also condolence to the family of Bishop Lloyd Smith. I want to remind the government sector that the summer program is progressing, and as yet, Killarney has not received one application for any member within the Killarney constituency to be hired. Is this the norm? Or I had a meeting yesterday and my constituents were asking me whether they can find at least 2 summer jobs. I don't know how many you gave to various different constituencies, but we need at least 2. If it's your policy to give none, then I accept your policy. But we deal with that at another date. I also want to remind members, Mr. Deputy, that the 7th of August, again, is Gambia Day, and I ask all to participate and support the community of Gambia in this historic event that has been going on from time immemorial. Mr. Deputy, I rise again today, blessed to give my contribution to this honorable House on behalf of the people of the Killarney constituency. The resolution before us today seeks this chamber's approval for becoming a member of the Interparliamentary Union, the IPU. It seeks for the constitution of a committee comprising 5 people to have responsibility for organization of relations and activities of Parliament with the Interparliamentary Union. It also seeks an approval of the making of guidelines by Parliament on how it will function as a member of the Interparliamentary Union. And the IPU, Mr. Deputy, is the worldwide organization of national parliamentarians. What initially was a small group of parliamentarians in 1889, dedicated to promoting peace through parliamentary democracy and parliamentary dialogue, is now a global organization with 179 members and 14 associate members. The organization states as one of its core components the facilitation of parliamentary democracy and empowering parliamentarians to promote peace, democracy, and sustainable development around the world. I support this resolution. The Bahamas has an old parliamentary tradition dating back to 1729. And as an independent sovereign country of 50 years, we have a healthy democracy where free speech and fair elections are cherished. The peaceful transfer of power is the norm. Bahamians are very engaged in politics and make their voices heard at every election. And the ideals of the IPU line up with the democratic and peaceful ideals we hold so dear. In a world where some of the worst types of populism are on the rise, it is always good to stand with organizations that advance democratic ideals and peaceful cooperation. The IPU says, I quote, "We work for peace, democracy, human rights, gender equality, youth empowerment, climate action, and sustainable development through political dialogue, cooperation, and parliamentary action," end quote. These are ideals we share in our Bahama land. Mr. Deputy, I will get more into this topic as we debate the new parliamentary bill, but it is necessary now to say again that we must build a new parliament. 2 of these buildings date to the beginning of the 19th century. The building of one started in the late 18th century. The limitations of these old buildings hamper the functioning of Parliament. There's inadequate space for members and the staff of Parliament. And just so the public would understand, to have just a slight insight as to the conditions here at Parliament, I would only briefly in 2 sentences talk about the bathroom. There's only one urinal facility, so if one individual is in, then others must wait in line or go and utilize the services of the bank or other adjoining businesses. Mr. Deputy, in the 21st century, we have one. Y'all don't have any. Mr. Deputy, in 21st century, I think that is somewhat embarrassing. But I need not speak about the conditions that the clerk work in, and they do their utmost best and perform above the call of duty, considering the strenuous and stressful and inadequate conditions that they function at maximum capacity. And I need not speak of the conditions one is placed in, even to eat a sandwich or any item of such nature. But Mr. Deputy, I can go on and on and on and talk about the termites and other related entities or disturbances within this parliamentary building. Regardless of which party is in power, we must build a new parliament. We can't just keep talking and pledging. This generation of leaders must get it done. There's bipartisan consensus that a new parliament is needed. However, for some reason, we collectively have not gotten the job done. Now is the time to build a modern parliament fit for the purposes of the 21st century and beyond. It should be a beautiful and awesome place, especially as we are talking about the redevelopment of downtown. It would add to the redevelopment of downtown, and whatever is done with this particular building would add to the sightseeing or touring facility for tourists, as they have said repeatedly that there's nothing to do. As I've said, it should be a beautiful and awesome place, taking into consideration in its design the history of the peoples who have made up this chain of islands. It should not be small and meager. We must think big in the design and its scope. Mr. Deputy, for democracy to work, we, the elected members, must respect the traditions and conventions of our systems. We are not just governed by laws, we are also under a set of traditions and conventions that enrich the democratic experience. Cabinet ministers are especially expected to behave in an appropriate manner, respecting these traditions and respecting these conventions. The conduct of the Minister of Immigration of late has been unbecoming. I will talk about that very soon. His giving out of citizenship at a funeral is abnormal. Now, he is in another scandal regarding Chinese nationals, and the leader of the opposition spoke very extensively about that, and I need not say anything. The minister clearly thinks there are no checks on his power, and he can do as he likes. But be assured, the day as this parliamentary session progresses, the minister will wake up sometime today as the session continues. That is not how our system works. It is time for this Prime Minister to relieve that rogue minister of his post. The sensitive work of immigration requires someone else as a minister. The current minister may be better assigned to a new and less demanding portfolio. And sometime today, we would help the Prime Minister in making such decision. Minister Bell's actions are a reflection on the Prime Minister and his government. Action must be taken, and it must be taken now, because that rogue minister can subsequently cause others to believe that they too can become rogue viral, which can be not only detrimental to the government, but detrimental to our country. Because people, not only here in the Bahamas, but people throughout the world is watching and listening. I've said to the Prime Minister on numerous occasions, and I will say it again, that as Prime Minister, one has to make decisions, very difficult decisions, that they may not necessarily like, but those decisions are made in the interest to protect the office of the Prime Minister. That office must be protected. They may not be decisions that one may personally like, but decisions has to be made. You would be confronted with difficult decisions because those decisions must be made, as difficult as they are, to protect the country. And individuals must understand that prime ministers may like decisions that they may not personally like, but decisions that has to be made. And I would hope that as the day progresses, and I speak further, that I would assist the Prime Minister in making such decision. And I would hope that that decision will be made before 4 o'clock, if not 5 o'clock. Mr. Deputy, I hope that our joining the IPU will help enrich this Parliament and bring us to greater cooperation with our sister parliaments around the world. And again, Mr. Deputy, I support this resolution, and I wait to say more and help our Prime Minister to make such a difficult decision. Sometimes I would always remember when the press was lambasting me with matters related to my brother. And I've said to them that if my brother or family members do anything wrong and they had to go to court, I would support them. That's family. It doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with what they've done, but I will protect them. And if my mother were to make a decision that is not right or lawful, I would disagree with my mother as much as I love her. But at the same time, I would spend every penny that I have to ensure that my mother is protected and get the best advice, and my love for her or whomever would not change. But we must respect the law. We must make decisions that we don't like, but decisions that would protect our democracy, protect the office of the Prime Minister, and protect our country. Mr. Deputy, I support this resolution. I will have more to say later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair.
asking that we have the word rogue be expunged, Mr. Deputy. It's insulting to the member, and it's not considered to be parliamentary.
Thank you, honorable member.
I have no issue with expunging the word rogue, but you can say he's gone viral. Okay?
Thank you,
Viral
honorable.
is a common name.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
I didn't want to interrupt the honorable member for Killarney. I simply wanted to announce that a team has been assembled, an interdisciplinary team for the design of a new parliament. And that team has been working, traveling to different locations, looking at various other parliaments so that they could be informed by some of the best practices in the design of the National Parliament of the Bahamas.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gates.
I just want to bring a point of clarification to the member of Killarney. We are very different from his administration. We would have communicated, I would have communicated on the 1st of June with the leader, and subsequently would have received names from colleagues on your side for summer employment. I can't get in your affairs, so I will say to you that the 2 names that you would need to provide, you can hand them over to me, and we will see where we can fit them in.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I can say again, I got none. I will provide you with the 2 names. I've been asked at our meeting yesterday what has happened to Killarney. I'm not being greedy. I'm not being selfish. I'm only asking for 2. And Killarney occupies half of New Providence. Half of the island is New Providence. And all we're asking for is 2, numero 2.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
I got none. Be there with the time.
Are you speaking to Wina?
Ain't nothing to say on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I'd like other colleagues also would like to offer my condolences to the family of Miss Marcia Russell Grant from McLeanstown. She also is the sister of the former member of Parliament for High Rock, Ken Russell. And so we want to offer our condolences to the entire Russell and Grant family. And then we also want to offer our condolences to the family of Natalie Thomas, a well-known matriarch from the area of Pelican Point. And so we also offer our condolences to Stephen Forbes from the East Grand Bahama constituency as well. He died in a tragic traffic accident. And so these are persons who are in our constituency who we would wish to offer our condolences to their families. And then I also echo the sympathies and condolences on behalf of Dr. Sands and his family, the family of Commissioner Paul Farquharson, and also Reverend Smith. Mr. Deputy, I don't intend on being too long in reference to this debate. I believe I would echo the remarks of the member from Marco City, as well as the remarks for the member of Killarney. The IPU is a global organization with national parliaments. As was said earlier, it began in 1889, and it has now grown to a membership of 179 members and 14 associate members. I think it's worth mentioning their slogan, which is "For democracy, for everyone," which I think is a significant slogan that we all should take note of and that we all should be in support of. Their vision is that we want a world where every voice counts, where democracy and parliaments are at the service of the people for peace and development. Again, it is a vision that we all support, I believe we all can buy into, and that we all agree with. And their mission is the IPU is the global organization for national parliaments. We promote democratic governance, institutions and values, working with parliaments and parliamentarians to articulate and to respond to the needs and aspirations of the people. We work for peace, democracy, human rights, gender equality, youth empowerment, climate action, and sustainable development through political dialogue, cooperation, and parliamentary action. Mr. Deputy, how could we say no to such a noble slogan? How could we say no to such a noble vision? How could we say no to such a noble mission? So I have no difficulties in supporting this resolution. I have no difficulties in joining the organization. But, Mr. Deputy, it is really up to us in this country, it is up to us in this parliament to ensure that the organization to which we join works for us and works for the people of the Bahamas. While I do not downplay the importance of the organization, but we must see how joining the organization and using this organization to improve our domestic situation in the Bahamas. The Interparliamentary Union, as spoken earlier, has 6 pillars that they focus on: climate change, gender equality, security and peace, sustainable development, human rights, and youth participation. Nearly every country in the world has some form of parliament. And again, while I have no difficulties, as I said, in joining the union, I'm sure that it has the potential to benefit the country through collaboration. There are many domestic issues that fit within these 6 pillars that in the Bahamas must be addressed. And it is hopeful that by joining this organization that we can collaborate and we can exchange ideas. And this is, I think, one of the benefits of it, exchanging the ideas as to how parliaments have addressed situations in their country and how we can use those kinds of ideas to address these situations in our country. Climate change. This is an area that countries all over the world are dealing with. And we are seeing the effects of climate change. Just look at the record-breaking heat in the US. Look at the record-breaking heat in Greece. I saw a story this morning where the tourists in Greece have to be airlifted out of Greece because of the tragic situation of forest fires, because of the heat, that it is now in crisis. I mean, to have a situation where Britain has to send empty planes to Greece to collect their tourists because of the heat and the fires and the smoke. Again, Greece is a small island nation, not that much different from the Bahamas, but they have a heat situation where they are reaching 115 degrees, 120 degrees, and that is a crisis for them. Mr. Deputy, also, when we look at what the situation with heat in the Bahamas as well, we have not gotten to a point where we are 115 degrees or 120 degrees, but we are pretty close to 100 degrees. Gender equality. While we have seen tremendous advancements, this is still an area that we still have a lot of work to do. Gender-based violence. We will see a bill that we will debate this week on gender-based violence. That, again, is a situation that has to be addressed. Peace and security is one of those areas that the union is focused on. Both the member for Marco City and the member for Marco City dealt with this yesterday, and he dealt with this morning. The member for Killarney also dealt with this as well, so I don't need to dredge this up again. But there are serious questions within the immigration ministry that has to be addressed. It cannot be ignored. The fact of a memo from a senior government official, which was read this morning, that spoke to the incident with the Chinese workers, that cannot go unanswered. And there must be some resolution that has to happen. As both, and I support and endorse what both the member for Marco City and the member for Killarney and all of us on this side have said, that with that appropriate, what has happened, the appropriate action is for the member for Carmichael to step down. That is the appropriate action. Under the area of sustainable development, the Committee for Sustainable Development was quoted as saying, and this was something that was on their website, parliaments have a responsibility to eradicate poverty and to ensure sustainable development for every citizen they represent, for fair and inclusive economic growth that leaves no one behind and which safeguards our planet. This has to be effective governance at all levels. Again, it is something that all of us can buy into and all of us can support. Economic growth is a hugely important for us, or is hugely important for us as a country. And one of the things that is important in terms of economic growth is financing, and government financing. Recently, we heard of a loan from Saudi Arabia. And we appreciate on this side that there is a need to obtain favorable financing terms. We understand that. We understand that there is a need to obtain these favorable terms from those countries and multilateral institutions that support the development priorities of the Bahamas. Again, we understand that. We note that the government has signed on to a $10 million loan from the Saudi Development Fund that is intended to support suitable facilities for small businesses and craft persons on several islands. The public, though, is concerned that this facility is not executed outside of the statutory provisions for loan facilities underwritten by the government. So I believe that the government has to answer some critical questions with respect to this $10 million loan facility. The first question is, why did the Prime Minister, as the Minister of Finance, not execute the loan agreement as is required by Section 16(1) of the Debt Management Act, a responsibility that the Finance Minister, by law, cannot delegate, as is said in the Debt Management Act? Where is the loan being booked in the new budget? We do not see it listed in the proceeds from borrowing. Where is the related expenditure outlined? We cannot find the appropriate allocation for related spending in the Ministry of Tourism or elsewhere. Will the proceeds be deposited in the consolidated fund as required by law? Is the loan being made directly to the Tourism Corporation? If so, under what statutory provisions? And is the Bahamas government the effective guarantor of the loan? The government has signed on all Bahamian taxpayers to pay back this $10 million loan. The government also must release all key details and terms in respect to this loan so that the Bahamian people can be assured that all legal requirements have been followed and that the funds will be used as intended, consistent with the best interests of our country. We have also seen unanswered questions which we have raised on the loan or the PPP development for the Grand Bahama Airport. As was stated by the member for Exuma, that the lawyers are working out the details on this agreement, but we would want to know, one, whether this is a loan to the government or whether this is a PPP arrangement. And if it is a PPP arrangement, what are the details of the PPP arrangement? Mr. Deputy, also for sustainable development, and these are some areas that, that must be addressed in the East Grand Bahama constituency within my constituency. There are some key concerns for the Sweden Ski area. We have, and I believe the member for Fort Charlotte visited Sweden Ski, and so the member for Fort Charlotte knows what is happening on the island or on the key of Sweden Ski. But they still need a proper dock in Sweden Ski. It is an area that you cannot get to Sweden Ski other than by boat. And so to have a properly functioning public dock is their livelihood. It is key for them. And so to have that, we know that you've allocated funding and have signed a contract for water ski, which we appreciate within the East Grand Bahama constituency. But Sweden Ski also, that dock needs to be addressed as well. Residents in Sweden Ski have also asked about the school in Sweden Ski. The building is unoccupied. I believe the building is still in need of repair. Those residents in Sweden Ski still have to take the boat from Sweden Ski. If they reside there throughout, I believe most of them, unfortunately, don't reside there throughout the week. But if they reside there throughout the week, they have to take the boat every morning to get to McLeanstown, and then they have to take a bus from McLeanstown to get into Freeport to go to school. Yes. Yes. So we again appreciate the fact that that is going to happen. And I also, just to raise that, I did speak to the member for Angliston, and she did respond to me in terms of having the school in McLeanstown repaired. And so we are looking forward to having that school in McLeanstown repaired so that at the very least, those residents, the primary school level, those residents that are in that area can have a place to go to school. I looked at it. I was in the constituency this weekend. We looked at it. I'm not sure if the work has yet started, but we need that work to, it's about a month to school opening in September, and so it is an urgent need. I know that the member for Pine Ridge, through her program, had done some work to bring it up to a certain level, but we desperately need to have that school sorted out for this school year. And then Swedenski, McLeanstown, those areas in East Grand Bahama are fishing village. Most of the persons who live in those areas are fishermen, and so this is their livelihood. And I got a call from, this was before the member for Central and South Eleuthera had made his announcement on the boat registration. And so they were obviously up in arms about previously paying $20 and now paying $700 for to register their boat. And we appreciate the fact that that has been put on hold. And although it has been put on hold, they are still asking the question, is it going to increase? And if it is going to increase, what is the amount it is going to increase to? Because any increase, obviously, for people whose livelihood is, it is a critical need for them to have that boat. And you come from a fishing village as well, and so I am sure that you will look out for the fishermen, and I think any increase for them is an increase that is too much, and so we would hope that that would be addressed. And I was hoping that the member for Exuma was here, but the member for Cat Island is here, and the member for Central and South Eleuthera is here, so I will raise this issue. The communities in East Grand Bahama all have festivals. And these festivals, as in any family island, are hugely important for them. And in High Rock, they've had one. Pelican Point, they've had one. Freetown, they've had one. McLeanstown, they've had one. But Swedenski has not yet had one. Swedenski is planning to have one this August. They are planning to have one, I believe it's the middle of August. They are planning to have their Swedenski Festival. All of the festivals have received funding from the Ministry of Grand Bahama, and they've also received funding from the Ministry of Tourism. This Swedenski Festival, unfortunately, the Ministry of Tourism had communicated that they were not going to provide assistance or funding for the Swedenski Festival. I'd reached out to the member for Exuma. The member for Exuma did say that he was going to revisit this. So there was still some back and forward with the ministries. They are in desperate need for additional funding. I've also pledged through my constituency allowance to provide them with some funding as well. And we need funding through every source that we can get. Swedenski is again one of those areas that was very hard hit during the hurricane. Collectively, and I will say this as the present member of Parliament, I've said this to them as well. Both governments have not paid sufficient attention to Swedenski. And we need to, in every way possible, we need to provide them with every assistance that we can. And so I'm asking that the government can look at providing some assistance for this festival. It is a means upon which they are able to bring back persons. And I see the member for Pine Ridge is speaking, so I'll...
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Pine Ridge.
Supporting all festivals on the island, and we started with East Grand Bahama. We have contributed, I think, a significant amount to Sweeting Ski, and I know that the Ministry of Tourism will be supporting as well. That was said. But I know you keep speaking about it, and I just want to say that yes, we have supported and we will continue to support. And we have also been doing a lot of work in Sweeting Sea as well in terms of putting in the septic tank and all that for the homes and dealing with the water situation that hadn't been done. And so I just want to ensure that the record reflects that we have been focusing on East Grand Bahama in particular and Sweeting Ski as well.
So I appreciate what you said, Mr. I hope that we are on the same page, because with this festival that is happening in August, I recently spoke to an official from the Ministry of Tourism who was saying that they were waiting on directives. So if you are saying that your ministry and the Ministry of Tourism is supporting this, I will leave it with you, that if you are saying that your ministry and the Ministry of Tourism is going to provide financial support for this upcoming festival in August, then I just want to be clear, because I know I recently got a very well. So I will leave it there. I will leave it there. that the minister have now said that her ministry and the Ministry of Tourism is going to support it. So also the seawall in High Rock. Again, if we are talking about sustainable development, the seawall in High Rock also needs to be repaired. And we also need small business development in East Grand Bahama. We need some of those grants that are being provided to be allocated, specifically allocated. I know that some have been recently granted, but we need more. We need to have that development. We need to have those small business development to come back to all of those areas in East Grand Bahama. And so I am, and I'm not saying this to say that nothing has been done, because to the contrary, the ministry has contributed significantly to East Grand Bahama. Obviously, you believe that that is important. And you've also listened to a lot of the advocacy that I have provided for, to advocate for all of those things in East Grand Bahama. So we are working together to make sure that those things, happen. But also, Mr. Deputy, I do want to lend my voice to support this important resolution. For us to join this organization is important. The organization's ideals are important, but it is up to us in this parliament to ensure that we utilize this union to ensure that domestically that our parliament is better and that our country is better. And so we support this resolution. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Golden Gate.
So, Deputy, today our Parliament has taken the critical first steps towards membership in the Interparliamentary Union. We will be a part of a community of national parliaments promoting democracy, accountability, and international cooperation. In this, we stand as one, government and opposition, in recognition of the importance of joining the IPU. This decision was first initiated by a conversation held at the 2022 IPU Assembly in Halifax, Canada, between a Bahamian delegation, which I was a part of, and the IPU Secretary General, Martin Chunyong. The following year in Bahrain, this initial conversation gained momentum, and here we are today, having debated a resolution that will culminate in our membership in the IPU. I highlight this chain of events because we're all aware of the discussion about travel and the extent to which members of government should travel, as well as questions about what is being done when delegations attend international meetings, events, and assemblies like IPU. Whether we all accept it or not, the Bahamas is a part of the global community, and whether we are present or not, decisions are being made that impact us. I believe that it is always better to be in the room when a decision is made and to be a part of conversations on actions that will impact us. For all the talk about travel, it is travel that led to this decision to join the IPU. It is through international relations that trade agreements with the UK and EU are signed. It is through travel that the Bahamas' voice is heard on the international stage as our Prime Minister travels the world and sounds the alarm on climate change on behalf of all Bahamian people and in solidarity with our Caribbean brothers and sisters, as well as all small island developing states throughout the world. The Bahamas is standing as a leader on this issue and many others, and it is only through being present that our voices are heard and projected regionally and internationally. I agree with the leader of the opposition, the member for Marco City, that the time is now for the Bahamas to live up to the principles of the IPU. Despite any concerns addressed today by the opposition in this regard, it should be noted that it is the Davis administration that has taken this important step, a step that may be supported by the opposition, but is being implemented by us. Whatever the concerns, it gives me comfort to see that at least the opposition can occasionally recognize a good idea when they see one. By joining the IPU, the Bahamas will take advantage of a vast pool of knowledge and expertise. We can learn from the experience of other parliamentarians facing similar challenges to inform our policy solutions. As we consider the benefits of joining the IPU, we must also consider the responsibilities that accompany membership in the IPU. We must stay committed to the highest standards of transparency, accountability, and integrity in government. On that note, I believe that this administration represents a significant improvement over our predecessors and has taken this country in the right direction. While the leader of opposition told us repeatedly today to imagine all the manners of scenarios, we must get away from the imagination zone for a moment, away from speculation, away from politically motivated grandstanding, away from fake outrage, and move toward truth. The truth is that this government has had an exemplary term so far, as measured by our productivity, and we will continue to improve on what we met when we came in office. Joining the IPU is fully in alignment with the standard that this administration has set for itself. The good news is that individual parliamentarians can also receive training opportunities and other forms of enrichment courtesy of the IPU, and that applies to government and opposition members. Considering the opposition's support of this measure, I would hope that they would take full advantage of this opportunity to improve their parliamentary performance. Mr. Deputy, many times we talk about membership in these international unions and organizations and I think that people understand how beneficial it is in theory, but they don't really grasp the practical benefit to a country like the Bahamas. Many people think that these meetings, everyone just sits around a table, votes on resolutions and agreements, and never really takes action, real action, beyond signing on to agreements that nations may or may not uphold. There's a lot of skepticism about our participation in international matters, but I would like the Bahamian people to be aware of just how countries have benefited from IPU membership. The IPU has facilitated diplomatic talks between Russia and the Ukraine. And while these talks have not yet succeeded, the IPU has kept communication channels open and kept hope alive for a possible resolution. In Sierra Leone, the IPU trained MPs and parliamentary staff on how to conduct a more efficient budget appropriation process. In Pakistan, parliamentary staff were trained on best practices for the drafting of legislation which allows for stronger laws and for the government's legislative agenda to move forward at a faster pace. In Zambia, capacity development was done to assist MPs in using data and research in supporting their parliamentary work, and tools were provided to assist with this venture. In Uzbekistan, a conference was held on gender equality and the creation of a more inclusive green economy. A small island state of Zimbabwe, virtual tours and education on parliament and parliamentary procedures were conducted by IPU. Many countries, big and small, receive very real, practical benefits from IPU membership. The IPU's current policy goals include climate change, democracy and strong parliaments, human rights, gender equality, youth participation, peace and security, and sustainable development goals. It is very clear that on any number of these, the Bahamas can benefit our domestic situation. Now, thanks to this resolution, we will be in the room. We will be a part of these important conversations, ensuring that the Bahamian people will benefit from the great potential that lies in membership. We look forward to all the ways that these benefits will emerge as time fully embraces our opportunity. So as I stand today to conclude the debate on the resolution for the Bahamas to join the Interparliamentary Union, I thank all of my honorable colleagues for the support and their commitment to moving our nation progressively forward as a result of the collaborations and relationships that will be forged through our affiliation and the benefits thereof. I am most focused on the ability we will gain from this IPU affiliation on knowledge and best practices that we can be exposed to in helping our young nation with our continued focus on national development, climate change, peace and security, gender equality, energy solutions, migration issues, financial de-risking, and a gamut of other critical matters faced by developing nations such as the Bahamas. There's only benefit that can be gained through our intentional and consistent participation in subsequent IPU assemblies, where we will build on the relationships already forged and position our nation to build more strategic alliances. Our Prime Minister has convincingly led the way in making our voice heard in the global marketplace. He has made us a leading voice. This IPU affiliation will build on his strong foundation. I believe that our membership in the Interparliamentary Union will prove very beneficial in supporting the mission to achieve our national objectives. Mr. Deputy, Golden Gate stands in full support of this resolution and in support of the IPU motto, which states, "For democracy, for everyone." I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? Okay. All right. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be passed. No. I need it. Whereas the Interparliamentary Union, the IPU, is a body that seeks to promote peace and security, democracy and human rights, the rule of law, and sustainable development. And whereas Parliament may make guidelines on how it will function as an IPU member. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House approves Parliament being a member of the Interparliamentary Union, approves the constitution of the committee comprising of 5 persons to have responsibility for organization of the relations and activities of Parliament with Interparliamentary Union, approves the making of guidelines of Parliament on how it will function as a member of the Interparliamentary Union. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The resolution is carried. further resolutions? Member statements? Appointments of select committees? Instructions of select committees? Discharge of select committees? Notice for future meetings? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney.
You all notices on behalf of the opposition as well.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney.
I give notice that at the next
Yeah.
sitting, I propose
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Killarney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. I give notice that at the next sitting, I propose to put forth the following, to ask the following questions. Mr. Deputy, I ask the opposition to, the government rather, listen very carefully to my questions, and I ask the Bahamian people to likewise listen carefully, because each question lead up to an ultimate decision. Question number one. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to the Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine was first granted a work permit on the 24th of February 2011, and that prior to that date, he had no lawful status in the Bahamas? Question number two. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine applied for permanent residency in 2021? Question number three. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine's application for permanent residency was never approved? Question number four. If the answer to question three is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mr. Racine was granted Bahamian permanent residency and table the evidence in this Honorable House? Question five. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine was granted Bahamian citizenship on the 6th of September 2022? Number six. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine never filled in an application to apply for Bahamian citizenship? Number seven. If the question to six is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mr. Racine applied for Bahamian citizenship and table the evidence in the Honorable House? Eight, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that a deceased man who is a naturalized Bahamian citizen cannot pass Bahamian citizenship on to his wife or children after his death? Number nine, if this is so, that is the answer to question 8, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that he deliberately misled the Bahamian people when he commented to the press on the 27th of June, 2023, that Mr. Racine's wife and children were entitled to Bahamian citizenship as a result of the fact that he was a Bahamian citizen before his death? Number 10, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that he personally administered the oath of citizenship to Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine at the funeral service for her late husband, Frank Racine, on the 24th of June, 2023. Question 11. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Frank Racine, applied for a permanent residence in the Bahamas on the 22nd of December, 2018? Question 12, if the answer to question 11 is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Frank Racine, applied for a permanent residency in the Bahamas, and table the evidence in this Honorable House? Question 13. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Frank Racine, applied for Bahamian permanent residency in 2019? And 14, if the answer to question 13 is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Frank Racine, applied for Bahamian permanent residency, and table the evidence in this Honorable House? And 15, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Frank Racine, application for permanent residency was never approved? And 16, if the answer to question 15 is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Mr. Racine, was granted permanent Bahamian permanent residency, and table the evidence in this Honorable House? Now, Mr. Deputy, I want all to listen to the questions as I advance, which are very, very pertinent. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of late Frank Racine, applied for a Bahamian spousal permit and was refused in February 2023? 18, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Mr. Frank Racine, never filled in an application to apply for Bahamian citizenship prior to the date of her late husband? And 19, if the answer to question 18 is no, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration provide this Honorable House with the date that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Mr. Racine, applied for Bahamian citizenship, and table the evidence in this Honorable House? And 20, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he personally administered the oath of citizenship to confer Bahamian citizenship on Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Mr. Racine, at the funeral service for Mr. Frank Racine on the 24th, listen carefully, on the 24th of June, 2023? Question 21. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mrs. St. Helene Joseph Racine, the widow of the late Mr. Racine, took the oath of allegiance as prescribed in the Bahamas Nationality Act at the funeral service for Mr. Frank Racine on the 24th of June, 2023? Question 22. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration, who is an attorney, confirm for this Honorable House that Section 9 of the Bahamas Nationality Act provides that upon taking the oath of allegiance, a person becomes a citizen of the Bahamas by naturalization? Question 23. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm to this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine died on the 29th of May, 2023? Allow me to repeat so that all may hear this question clearly. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that Mr. Frank Racine died on the 29th of May, 2023? Question 24. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he attended the funeral service for Mr. Frank Racine on the 24th of June, 2023? And 25, question 25, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he was physically present in this Honorable House for the presentation of the budget debate on the 31st of May, 2023? I want to repeat that because a register is kept in Parliament to confirm or deny whether an individual is present. I want to repeat. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he was physically present in the Honorable House, this Honorable House, for the presentation of the budget debate on the 21st of May, 2023? Now, you must remember that Mr. Racine died on the 29th of May. Keep those words, keep those numbers in your head. Number 26, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he left the Bahamas for Switzerland during the first week of June, 2023? So he left the Bahamas for ILO conference. He said it himself, documented and spoken and recorded in Cable 12. So would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for this Honorable House that he left the Bahamas for Switzerland during the first week of June, 2023? And question 27, would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm for the Honorable House that this was the only trip that he made to Switzerland between the 29th of May and the 24th of June? That is important. The ILO meeting was the 5th to the 16th of June. The member, documented in the news media, attended such meeting. The member's presence in Parliament was on the 31st, and others as documented by the Parliamentary Register. The Parliamentary Register shows exactly when the member would have been away. It's all documented. Question 28. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration confirm the Honorable House that he told the Bahamian media, listen carefully, that he told the Bahamian media, subsequently the entire Bahamas, inclusive of Parliament, that Frank Racine, and I quote, words of the minister, he would have called me while he was in hospital. I was in Switzerland at that time. The records are here. When I returned, he was being buried within the week of that Saturday. The records are here. Question 29. It is evident that there's a complete disconnect, and we don't use the word lie, but dishonesty. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration kindly inform this Honorable House of the date in June 2023 and the time that he received a call from Mr. Racine, who had been dead since May 29th during this trip to Switzerland in June of this year. What that would mean, the records reflect he was here on the 31st. The man died on the 29th. He received a call. So for this to happen, the member would have had to be in Switzerland, run back here on the 31st, then mark present, and fly back out the following day. Now, the records are clear. The records are clear. So let me repeat this question. Would the Honorable Minister of Immigration kindly inform this Honorable House of the date in June 2023 and the time that he received a call from Mr. Racine? Obviously, Racine was dead, so he can receive a call from a dead man. Racine was dead, who had been dead since May 29th during his trip to Switzerland in June of this year. My final questions, it is quite evident that I don't ask questions unless I too have the answers. Would the Honorable Prime Minister appreciate the significance of the breaches committed by this Minister of Immigration and their far-reaching implications? Take the honorable course of action to protect our constitutional democracy by terminating the Honorable Minister of Immigration from the Cabinet. Final question, would the Honorable Prime Minister appreciate the significance of the breaches committed by his Minister of Immigration and their far-reaching implications? Take the honorable course of action to protect our constitutional democracy by appointing a committee of 3 eminent, respected, and nonpartisan Bahamians to investigate the actions of Minister Bell during his tenure at Immigration and to make recommendations to the government. Mr. Speaker, I only want to say that I still await the answers to several questions. That is, how many convicts have been issued firearms? I've received no answer. The types of firearms. How many convicts have been previously convicted of crimes involving dangerous drugs and firearms? And how many of these convicts spent time in prison? Mr. Speaker, I will sign all these, but the records would obviously, Cabinet has to deal with this matter. And I can show you a copy. The minister was here. The records will reflect. Yes. What's today's date? Today's date?
The 24th.
Today's date. I am so excited. I am happy I'm getting over this flu.
Order that the documents be brought up.
Not my bank, I tell you that much. Lying on the dead. Hard when you lie on the dead, you know.
Order that the documents to lie on the table. Adjournment.
I now move that we adjourn to Wednesday, July 26th at 10 a.m.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the House in its rising do adjourn to Wednesday, the 26th of July, 2023, at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Final adjournment.
26, 2023 at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and seconded that the House do adjourn. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned to Wednesday, the 26th of July, 2023 at 10 a.m.